So, tell me about your brand new podcast. You started it in April?
My brand new podcast that's brand new, that's talking about stuff that happened 30 years ago. The Cat House Hollywood podcast is people have been telling me for a long time, like, oh, dude, you got to write a book. And I was like, well, I don't know if the book I write is going to be what everybody wants me to write. And there were so many great stories that happened from the Cat House, not only the Cat House itself, but that era of the mid 80s to early 90s. And I had a strict rule that I didn't allow cameras in the club, so none of this stuff has ever been documented. And then I started the Cat House Hollywood podcast, and it blew up, and people loved it. And people loved the stories because it really was a special time that will never be recreated. And instead of having these stories told by reporters or journalists or writers, the stories of things that happened at the Cat House are told by the people that were there, that experienced it. If it's, episode 9 talks about, the Axl Rose chasing David Bowie down the street story, and David Bowie was a mess hanging in the DJ booth, and in the DJ booth was just David Bowie and the DJ Joseph Brooks, so the show is with the DJ, talking about it. And, when you got a club that, obviously the club made it because of the bands that came from the Cat House scene, like Guns N' Roses and Jane's Addiction, Faster Pussycat, LA Guns, all those bands. But there's a lot of stories of stuff that happened that wasn't those bands. And it's sexy stories, it's sad stories, it's dangerous stories. And it's kind of just a snapshot of what it really was like in the Hollywood rock scene during that era, because it was something that was very, very special. And these are firsthand stories, and some of them unbelievable. And it's now that I'm even realizing, like, wow, my friends that we were just all guys that hung out ended up being the biggest rock stars in the world, and these are people that are telling their stories. And the upcoming episode's got John 5 talking about sneaking into the Cat House when he was like 16 and what it was like being there then. So it's all these people telling incredible stories of just an incredible era.
It's like a walk down memory lane.
It is. It's a stumble down memory lane. And, I'm the first person that I say in most of the episodes, my memory is shot. I don't remember a lot of this stuff. But we bring on people on the show that were there, that they remind me, and they say, I remember when you did this, and I remember when this happened with this guy. So it's pretty incredible. I mean, I've been very blessed to do a lot of great shows, and I love doing Headbangers Ball, and I love all the stuff I've done with the racing. But this Cat House Hollywood podcast is something I'm most proud of, and it's doing really well.
So besides not wanting to write a book, what made you decide ultimately to begin it?
It's easier. I just turn the microphone on and just start talking. It's not that I don't want to write a book. It's really hard because I can't have a ghostwriter do it. I mean, it would talk a lot about all the vices that got a hold of me and what it was like growing up in that scene and the struggles and what it was like, being a very successful BJ and then being broke selling cars in a car dealership. I want to tell those stories, and one day I will. But the Cat House is just everybody reliving that era, the great stories and the terrible, tragic stories. We lost a lot of friends, So it was just throwing it up against the wall. And then once you do it, and then you see like, wow, I'm the number 4 podcast on iTunes. And all of a sudden you're like, okay, I got to be number 3 now. And now I put more pressure on myself to do a better show.
I think this is a good time now because it seems like the last few years has really been an era of nostalgia.
I hate saying nostalgia, but you're 100% right. And for years, even in the last episode 10, one of the guests, Josh, that was on the show, that says, for years I didn't talk about Cat House. I didn't even talk about Headbangers Ball. And it's not because I was embarrassed about it. It's just because I moved on in my career and I was trying other things, and I didn't want to be that guy like, oh, he's just reliving the past. And I'm not that guy, but I am just talking about it now with such passion and love of that scene. And it's I mean, I ain't getting paid for that show. I'm doing the show because I like telling the stories. I don't have illusions thinking that the Cat House Hollywood podcast is going to put me on TV again. I'm doing it because these are great stories that need to be told, and nobody else can tell them, and nobody else, I'm reading in Rolling Stone where it says that Axl hit David Bowie at the Cat House. I was like, that didn't happen. Here's what happened, and I know for a fact what happened because I was there. So it's the stories that are unbelievable stories, and I just took these stories for granted because this was my life. Meanwhile, I'll read a book that talks about crazy things that happened with Keith Richards and go, oh my God, can you believe this? Not realizing like my stories of Axl are equally important to some people, but they're just my life, so I didn't think that it was that great, and now I'm telling these stories and I'm really enjoying doing the show.
Well, I'm excited for it. It sounds like, right up my alley. I'm definitely going to go subscribe.
Please do, and tell everybody. I'm very proud of it. I like doing it a lot.
So I wanted to bring up Riki's ride.
Yes.
So last year you changed your charity to focus on veteran suicide.
Yes.
Tell me about your decision to do that and why it's important to you.
Every year I've done a motorcycle ride and raised money, and whether it was the Claire Wineland Foundation or whether it was up, and the only thing that I ask is that every penny that I raise goes right to the charity. So if I'm gonna bust my ass, spend a lot of money and a lot of hours on a motorcycle raising money for a charity, I wanna make sure that it goes to a good cause, that it's not somebody that's getting paid to do this. The charity, we didn't put money towards hotels or gas. The veteran suicide is something that it's starting to get a little bit of attention, but still not enough. I was on a motorcycle ride a couple years ago, and I hooked up with these bikers that were doing this thing called the Bass Ride, which was Bikers Against Soldier Suicide. So I rode with these guys, and it wasn't a very big ride, and we ended up stopping at this place, and I sat down, and I ate food, and I'm talking to these veterans, and this guy tells me the story about how, there were 4 brothers that he fought with overseas, and that when he got back, everybody made it back, and since he's been back, 3 of them have committed suicide, and I'm like, I thought you're losing your friends overseas. You're losing your friends in Afghanistan or wherever it is. You're not supposed to lose them when you get back. And then when I found out that 22 veterans commit suicide every single day, my jaw dropped. And as saddened as I was to hear that, I was sickened that nobody is doing anything about it. And this is something that maybe if there's just somebody to talk to these veterans, that makes a difference. I mean, it's not like we're asking to build all these, we need to build more stuff for our veterans, but we're not. And yes, it is important for the people that are fighting, but I'm talking about the 70-year-old guys that fought. I mean, 22 veterans a day? This is something, the answer should be 0. We need to be treating our veterans better. And it's not being done, and it's being ignored. And that to me is disgusting. So I decided, okay, I'm gonna do a big ride this year, and I'm gonna raise as much money as I can for Stop Soldier Suicide. And then this time, I had Leah Vendetta, who was on the television show Ink Master. She's a famous tattoo artist, happens to be sitting next to me right now. I was like, hey Leah, do you wanna go on this ride with me? And I said, just go as long as you wanna go. So you want to ride on the back of my bike, you want to ride from LA to San Francisco, okay. Well, I ended up riding 14,500 miles, and Leah rode 14,300 miles. I think there were only 200 miles she didn't do. And we kept on talking to people about Stop Soldier Suicide, and we're stopping at areas, and there's veterans coming out, and then there's veterans' families coming out. We're doing this ride, and we're meeting wives of people in the military that are sitting, and I am the first one to tell you, I got goosebumps right now, and there are several times during this ride that it brought me to tears. This is a fact. I'm not saying this bull, that these wives are telling me, or I can't tell you how many times, big strong men that were high ranking in the service that were telling me that they got home, and when you're out there, you're doing the most important job you could possibly do. And then all of a sudden you're back and you don't know what to do. It's disgusting. It's disgusting that nobody's taking care of these guys. And there were guys that were telling me that they had thought of suicide. Big, strong soldiers, men and women, and that they tell me that they've lost brothers and sisters at home, not overseas. Inexcusable. So you hear people talk about raising awareness. We do stuff to raise awareness. Okay, raising awareness doesn't really cost anything. So to know that the $32,000 that we raised, and we had great people like Death Wish Coffee that helped raise a lot of money as well, and Deneen Pottery that donated stuff that we raffled off, and it was such an incredible experience meeting so many incredible people. But Hot Leathers made badass Ricky's Ride t-shirts, and we sold the t-shirts, and they gave all of the money to stop soldier suicide. So there were some people that did some incredible things. Everybody stood behind it. I loved seeing America. I loved riding all over America. I loved meeting the people, and we raised money for a really good cause. So the truth is, Ricky's Ride is very expensive. And when I raised $32,000, not a penny goes to gas, hotels, or anything. I couldn't do it this year.
Out of your pocket?
It came out of my pocket, and we also were helped by Death Wish Coffee, Law Tigers, and Hot Leathers, people that helped give money to pay for the expenses. But so we decided, Leah and myself, okay, next year we're gonna ride from, and when I say this is with little planning. I'm gonna ride from Mexico to Alaska. We haven't thought about a charity, we haven't thought about anything, but we're gonna ride from Mexico to Alaska next year. I haven't planned it out yet, but that's what we want to do. But we're not gonna ride this year because it actually, when I go run, one of my legs is cocked the other way now because it's been on the shifter for so long. But it was incredible. I've ridden everywhere in America except Alaska, so I'm very excited about the possibilities.
Good. So when you raised all that money for
Stop Soldier Suicide.
Thank you. What do they do with it? Where do the funds go to help that cause?
They have counseling. They help with job placement. I think if I do another charity run, what I might start is, you never know, maybe me, Riki, and Leah Foundation, so we know where the money goes. Even though I did very look into it, there's different websites you can look into, because there have been organizations that said they help veterans, and these people make money as well. We didn't make money, so they go into counseling, they go into job placement, they have 24-hour phone lines that are manned to help this, medical, there's a lot of stuff that's done, and I'll be honest, I did know it all because I research it, but I don't remember where it all went.
That's good. I think mental health is at the root of it. There's not good systems.
Mental health is at the root of everything right now.
And like when you're active duty, like there's this stigma that it's going to ruin your career, so people are afraid. And then, the don't leave anyone behind. That mentality is still there. I've known people that their friend dies and they wish it was them, and there's that guilt that they're still alive.
I can't imagine what it'd be like to serve and 3 people around you are killed and you're alive, And when you're there, I have never served in the military, but I have the utmost respect for not only the people that serve in the military, but the people that are at home taking care of the families while their husbands or wives are out there serving, because they are working their ass off and they have a price to pay as well. It's very difficult for them as well. So there needs to be more done. There needs to be more done. When you're out there and you're doing the most important job there is, and then you're home, and what do you do? I can't imagine.
Yeah. Did you have anything else before we wrap up?
Yes. Listen to my podcast, the Cat House Hollywood podcast, or my radio show, Racing Rocks. I'm on all social media under Riki Rachtman, RIKIRACHTMAN, and I'll be doing a show very soon called the Triple R. It's going to have the biggest names. It's Riki Rachtman Radio. I'm going to be on it. Leah Vendetta's going to be on it. The biggest names in music, entertainment, and people that aren't even big that are just really interesting are going to be on it too. So that's soon. And be nice to people.
Thank you.